Today I'll be speaking about 9 different subjects and processes that are relevant to the National Construction Code for 2014. Early response fire alarm systems. The Building Code of Australia has for many years required smoke alarms and in some cases heat detection alarm systems to be installed throughout the residential buildings. To allow the occupants ample time to respond to these alarms, they are situated at or near the ceiling in positions such as the hallway, adjacent bedrooms, or each part of a dwelling containing a bedroom and the remainder of the dwelling. The design of these residential buildings will often mean that a varying number of alarms can be situated throughout the building. For this reason, a fire in one location which triggers an alarm would not necessarily warn the other occupants in the premises that a fire event was actually occurring. In order to increase the occupants' awareness of such an event, the Building Code of Australia will now require that a Class 1 building and within sole occupancy units of Class 2, 3 and 4, alarms must now be interconnected. Therefore, the Building Code of Australia Volume 2 has been amended to read as follows. Smoke alarms must be located in Class 1A and B buildings, comply with the Australian Standard 3786 smoke alarms, be connected to the consumer mains power where consumer power is supplied to the building, and be interconnected where there is more than one alarm. Options for exit signs. The running man exit sign is a common image used throughout Class 2 to 9 buildings. It is a requirement that these buildings are provided with adequate lighting upon failure of normal artificial lighting during an emergency and with adequate means to identify exits and paths of travel to an exit. Photoluminescence describes the phenomenon of visible light emission from any form of matter for a period of time after the absorption of UV rays. The subsequent innovation of this quality has provided a PL exit sign proven to glow for sufficient time to identify exits and paths in case of an emergency. The use of a PL exit sign, therefore, is now an option under the BCA and is dependent upon certain specifications being met. As part of the new deemed to satisfy provisions for the exit signs, a new specification E4.8 photoluminescent exit signs has been included within Volume 1 that sets out minimum illumination, luminance and duration for the performance of the actual exit sign itself. Fire hose reels, Class 2, 3 and 4. Dangers associated with fire hose reels in Class 2, 3 and 4 parts of buildings has been an ongoing concern for some time now, and that is true. For this reason, the requirement to provide fire hose reels in Class 2, 3 and 4 parts of a building has now been removed. The installation requirements for portable fire extinguishers, including a requirement to cover Class A fire risk, has now been introduced. Portable fire extinguishers provided in Class 2, 3 and 4 parts of a building must have a Type ABE type fire extinguisher, must be a minimum of 2.5 kilograms and must be situated at no more than 10 metres travel distance from any sole occupancy unit. Moving right along, Class 3 timber frame construction. Again, fire-based issue. A concession exists under the current BCA, applies to Class 2 buildings allowing the use of timber framing. Typically, non-combustible construction would have applied. However, extensive research by the Fire Code Reform Centre determined that fire loads for timber frame buildings would not prevent the safe evacuation of a 3-storey Class 2 building. Therefore, construction practices for brick or concrete were exempted, which allowed the use of timber framing. Consideration was also given to exempting Class 3 buildings, which are a residential building other than a building Class 1 or 2. Until now, 3-storey timber framing has not been an approved method of construction for Class 3 buildings. After 3 years' work by the Forest and Wood Products Australia and the Australian Building Codes Board, timber framing was recently approved to be used on a wider range of projects. The new regulations now permit the use of fire and acoustic rated timber frame construction systems for 3-storey Class 3 buildings, example, hotels and motels, and broadens the market for timber products. The concession to use timber framing has now been expanded and can apply to certain Class 3 buildings. Designers and builders will now have material options while bringing the environmental advantages of timber to more projects. For some time, concerns have been raised throughout the industry that hardboard wall cladding was not covered via a deemed to satisfy provision with the Building Code of Australia. New provisions will now apply and allow the use of hardboard wall cladding without having to revert to an alternative solution. Hardboard wall cladding will now supplement the current range of wall cladding options within Volume 2 of the Building Code with the referencing of the new standard, AS New Zealand Standard 1859.4, reconstituted wood-based panels, specifications, wet processed fibreboard. The Plumbing Code. In 2014, the Plumbing Code and the National Construction Code are harmonised even further. Heated water energy efficient provisions have now been consolidated into the Plumbing Code to enable all the relevant provisions to be accessed from one place. There has also been some restructuring of the deemed to satisfy provisions to clarify the installation of fixtures and fittings accessible for persons with a disability. That is a good idea. Cross-connection was previously identified as a matter of public policy, and a new provision has been inserted to specify measures for cross-connection control for protection of drinking water. For this reason, a building which is served by a non-drinking water supply will need a backflow prevention device installed at the meter or at the point of connection. Watermark. There is a requirement in the Plumbing Code of Australia for certain plumbing and drainage materials and products to be certified and authorised for use in a plumbing or drainage installation. These materials and products are certified and authorised through the application of the Watermark certification scheme. The scheme is currently managed and administered and has been taken over by the Australian Building Codes Board. Now, to achieve the Watermark certification, the subject material or product must be tested by a recognised testing laboratory, comply with an approved specification, be manufactured in accordance with an approved quality assurance program, and carry a warranty. Certified materials and products are identifiable by the Watermark trademark, which must be displayed on the product or material upon the granting of a Watermark certificate of conformity. Two critical documents which underpin the Watermark certification scheme have been updated. They have changed in the Plumbing Code of Australia following the transfer of the scheme to the Australian Building Codes Board. Specifically, the former Australian standard, I like this one, AS 5200.000, will no longer be referenced as it has been replaced by the Schedule of Specifications, along with the exempt materials and products listing, both of which will be maintained as living documents published online and updated regularly through the Australian Building Codes Board website. Also, references to the Risk Assessment Document MP 78/1999 have been replaced in the Plumbing Code of Australia by the Australian Building Code Board Manual of Assessment for the Risk of Plumbing Products. Australian standards. There hasn't been any major changes except for the number which goes 4586. Australian Standard 1170.2 Amendment 3, which is the Structural Design Actions, Wind Actions, has now been referenced. Australian Standard 1657, Fixed Platforms, Walkways and Ladders, has now also been referenced to the 2013 edition. The 2013 edition of AS 4586 Slip Resistance Classification of New Pedestrian Materials has been referenced. Changes to Volume 2, which is Class 1 to 10. Again, 1170, the Structural Design Actions, Wind Actions, has been referenced. The standard I spoke about before, 1859, which is the reconstituted wood-based panel specifications, wet process fibreboard, and last but not least, AS 4055, which is the wind loads for housing. The old 2006 version is no more. We've transitioned that over the last 12 months. We are now using the current 2012 edition. Thank you very much, guys. It's been a wonderful job. Thank you for tuning in.
Today we're celebrating a new generation, not bound by age, gender or fitness, but by the belief that better health leads to better lives. That small little steps is all it takes. Welcome to Generation Better.